Planning your next post-COVID vacation? Be prepared with the help and expert advice of the Travel Guys.
Hello and welcome to The Travel Guys, our weekly travel show with what's happening and what's new in the world of travel. Today we're talking Samoa, and I'm delighted having my guest in the studio today is Sonny Rivers, New Zealand Manager for Samoa Tourism. Welcome, Sonny.
Talofa Mike, Mano Soifo. Thank you for having me.
It's a delight, Sonny. A couple of quick points I thought I'd mention to viewers. Auckland Airport are just saying that yes, they're opening up with Australian borders opening, but guess what? There's massive roadworks around there. There's new road layouts. It's going to be, I'd say it's going to be chaos. So just a warning to anybody travelling to Australia with the new bubble, even travelling domestically, do allow plenty of time to get there. That's been stressed time and again by Auckland Airport. Goodness knows when we're ever going to stop having cones. We are the city of cones, as somebody once said about us.
Samoa is Lotus Land. In the lush warmth of its tropical climate, tempered by the coolness of tall volcanic hills, natural beauty is abundant. The infinite colors of its tropical waters bring to life the images you thought only existed in postcards. But it's the beautiful culture and smiling people which truly make Samoa the cradle of Polynesia.
2 and 3.
Welcome to Samoa!
So Sonny, just about yourself, how did you get involved with this fantastic job, which I think many more people will be very envious of what you're doing now?
Actually, I got lucky because I've been, out there throwing, job applications around and hoping for the best, and anything I could get my hands on. And then, I actually started off as a driver at the Samoa Tourism Authority, and then, from there on, I worked my way up, and a couple of years later, I was lucky enough to be able to pursue further studies overseas. Later on in end of 2014, I caught the call to come up and represent beautiful Samoa in New Zealand.
So you've been here since 2014?
Correct,
Well
end of 2014.
Okay. But obviously tourism is very important to Samoa. Can I ask the question, how important? Is it the main driver for income for the country?
Yes, actually the tourism is our number one breadwinner. At times there's also, the alternate with remittances. So at one point would have remittances on top, and then the next year would have tourism on top.
I would imagine then with COVID hitting so badly that the remittances is desperately important for the country right now.
Oh yes, it is definitely.
Explain what I mean by remittances, by the way, Sonny.
So actually that's where our overseas-based Samoan families and expats are sending back money to help support their relatives living in Samoa. So it's basically, something that's been instilled into our younger Samoan generations as they're growing up, go out into the world, but never forget your homeland. And that's what a lot of them are carrying, including myself. I do send a lot of money back home to my mum and relatives who are living in Samoa to help with family support.
Great. Interesting to note too, the Samoan history that we won't delve right back, but there's a strong, German connection, isn't there?
Sorry?
A strong German connection with Samoa.
Yes, it's there's if you go to Samoa, there's a lot of Samoans with German last names. That's the result of the previous world wars, where the Germans took over Samoa, and the U.S. or the United States took over what is known now as American Samoa, but it was previously known as Eastern Samoa.
Actually, I must admit, just as an aside, I love when Western Samoa, as they were then, beat Wales in the 1991 Rugby World Cup. It was such a shock to the rugby world. But one of the commentators said, goodness, if Western Samoa can beat Wales, what would happen if the whole of Samoa got together? But just briefly, American Samoa right next door, but it is quite a completely different country in terms of the way it's governed and who it's governed by, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Even though we do speak the same language, they are actually our brothers and sisters. We still have that very close cultural connection. And the only difference is that they are now a territory of the United States, and they also do have their own governments, and they govern themselves. Whereas us in independent Samoa, we call it that's why we call it Samoa, and we are independent. So that's the only difference. But we're still
You're still brothers?
related. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're still very much related.
I'm sure. Okay. Just now talking about tourism and travel coming to Samoa. How many islands, firstly, in the Samoan group?
For Samoa, that's Samoa.
Yep.
There's actually 10 islands in
Wow.
the Samoan archipelago. 4 of those are inhabited, and that includes the 2 main islands of Upolu and Savai.
Yep.
The rest are all uninhabited islands.
So Samoa, yeah, Upolu was the main one with the main town of Apia is on, just at the capital.
Yep.
It's a thriving tropical, it's really an interesting city. I've walking around there, I found it really fascinating. There's quite a cultural element too. Okay, getting to Samoa, pretty easy.
Yep. From New Zealand to Samoa, pre-COVID, we had daily flights, both with Air New Zealand and Samoa Airways.
Yes.
Unfortunately, all of that had come to a halt due to the border closures, and so it only takes about 3.5 hours to fly to Samoa from Auckland, and about just over 5 hours flight time from Sydney, Australia.
Okay, Sonny, one thing I found interesting, and I think it was a great concept. Samoa used to be on the other side of the dateline, and you made a decision about 3 or 4 years ago, I think, or maybe even a bit earlier than that, to bring that little bubble back onto our side of the dateline. I think that's a really smart move.
Yes. Interesting, because before then, we used to be the last place on Earth to see the sunset. And then after the move, we became one of the 2 destinations with New Zealand, Gisborne, I understand,
Yes.
to be the first to see the sunlight. And that depends on which time of the year that happens. But the whole point behind moving ourselves onto the other side of the dateline is to ensure we align ourselves with our counterparts in New Zealand and Australia. Because we found that having different dates and also driving on the other side of the road, we'll get to that in a minute, but it would really help us in terms of operating and doing
Yep.
activities. And when you're flying over, you don't have to worry about, can I check with my agent what time am I arriving? Am I arriving yesterday? Am I arriving tomorrow?
No.
Yeah, so it's all about trade and tourism. That's the whole point behind us shifting the dateline.
Okay, you mentioned driving on the other side of the road.
Yeah, and then right after, I think we first switched the roadside we drive on. Again, it's all to do with...
I didn't know that. I didn't realise you used to drive on the American side of the road.
Yes.
Wow. I did not know that.
Well, the thing is, having been in the tourism since 2003, part of my job back then when I was a driver was taking familiarization groups around,
Yep.
a lot of travel agents, and to see and explore the country and check out all the activities,
Yep.
accommodation and all that sort of activities. We were driving on the other side, the American side or the German side of the road, and that's the first thing I get asked when as soon as the agents jump in the car with me. They say, "Oh, you guys drive on the other side of the road." How would people cope with trying to maneuver themselves and navigate on Samoan roads when they're driving on the wrong, when they're completely unfamiliar with the roads? Yeah, so I guess that's one of the main reasons why we decided to do the move, is to ensure there's an easy flow of people traveling into Samoa.
And far less things too.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Samoan people are very friendly. We always smile and then to befriend everyone, even though that we are not family.
Samoa is my life. It's my country. It's my island. It's the island of paradise. Come join us, and we make you happy.
Staying in Samoa, that's one thing that really impresses me, is the wide range of accommodation styles. And from really genuinely good 4.5 star properties down to what makes Samoa so unique is whales. Whale is a magical concept. Can you explain what the concept is, please?
Whale concept is basically budget or low budget accommodation. So a whale is a basic Samoan hut,
Yeah.
with thatched roofs and a simple setup with posts, wooden posts, and sometimes the floor is just sand or coral. Sometimes people would elevate the floor just a little bit and make it wooden.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different ways they've done up the whales now. Some of them have been built with fixed walls.
Most of them are just open, though. The ones I've
Yeah,
seen, just completely open. You've got a roof, 4 posts, and a bed, and a bedroll that you have.
Yeah,
And of course, you dine with the villagers. The villagers usually is just the ones I've seen on the beach are the most stunning settings. You know, watching a sunset or a sunrise from your own little beach, and then you just amble across the road to the village, and you have breakfast with the local village people or dinner with the local village people.
Yes. So the whole concept of the whale is mainly an open setting. So originally the design was to allow the breeze to come through. And it helps you with, you don't have to tidy up afterward, because the wind would just blow out what's left in the fire. And also they would have, when you require privacy, you would there are also built-in woven blinds that you can always pull down for privacy and to protect yourself from the elements. But a whale on the beach, that's why we came up with the concept of a beach whale, which is purely a whale situated on the beach, just about over 10 feet from the water. And that's like $100 million view, because you're sleeping to the sound of the waves lapping on the shore, and then you're waking up again, and the first thing you see is could be the sunrise and the beautiful lagoons and the white sandy beaches right in front of you at a small cost.
About $30 a night, something like that?
Yeah, about for the $30-$40 New Zealand dollars a night, which in equivalent in Samoan tala would be about 70 tala up to 120 tala a night. That comes with breakfast and dinner.
Wow, that's great. Because I mentioned the point, you say budget, but I know people who have taken that. Money hasn't been the object, it's the experience. They can well afford to stay in a top hotel, but they may be staying in a lovely hotel, but they'll just spend 1 or 2 nights in a whale, particularly out on the island of Savaii, where the accommodation is quite different from on the mainland.
Yes, it's one of our most recommended activities as part of an itinerary. When you're booking accommodation or a package to Samoa, it's always good to include those add-ons where you probably pop into a whale either in Savaii or on Upolu Island to get that local Samoan experience, because the locals, that's why they build these whales, is sometimes used for relaxation. When you've done a lot of work during the day,
you just chill out.
Domestic chores and all those activities, that's where you would come back to relax and to enjoy the cool winds and the breeze.
A new way to experience Samoa. So what are you waiting for? Try something different and come and join us on a tour.
Try something different.
So what are you waiting for? Come out to the coastal walk and try something different.
Down on the south coast has got some absolutely idyllic resorts, relatively easily accessible, maybe 3 or 4 hours drive for some of them. But there's adults only ones there. There's family resorts. There's apartment style accommodation. Just about anything to suit whatever people's budgets or their tastes are. One I mentioned is that an experience I had, which to me just fascinated me about Samoa, and I've talked to so many people about it, is the Return to Paradise resort down on the south coast, named after a movie that Gary Cooper shot down there in 1953. And so some of our older viewers will remember, they'll know the name Gary Cooper. But the film was shot down there in the local village, right next to where this resort's been built, on that particular beach. But I had to experience, the lead actress was almost an amateur lady, Roberta Hayes. But I was down at the resort a few years ago, only about 3 or 4 years ago, and she came back from the States. She was in the mid-late 80s, and there was a celebration of the movie, and I think it was the 50th anniversary of the movie.
I recall that.
Yeah, and she came back, and she was an amazing character. She was sprightly. She danced till about 1 o'clock in the morning, and everyone was so in love with her and the way that. And the movie's great too. It's an anachronism of the time. But I had one funny thing happen to me. I was talking to some travel agents, doing a presentation to them. And I mentioned A Return to Paradise in the movie, and these 2 young Samoans kept talking through my presentation. I was a bit put out, so I said, "Excuse me, guys, I'm trying to make a presentation." And one said to that, "Oh, I'm so sorry." They said, "But the baby in that movie was my grandma." So it was a lovely little touch, it really was, yeah. So we've got great places to stay. I believe so first, the access to Savaii, the other island. What is the access? How close is it to the mainland?
The route between Upolu and Savaii is serviced by 2 ferries. Both ferries do carry vehicles across.
How long does that take?
There's the big ferry is the one that takes about just over an hour, like 1 hour and 5 minutes.
Okay.
The smaller ferry takes about 1 hour and 20 minutes.
Okay.
And both ferries do carry both people and vehicles across with them. The first ferry leaves at 6 in the morning. And then every 2 hours after that, going from both directions. One departing Upolu Island, while the other is departing Savaii Island at the same time. So they're crisscrossing along the route.
Okay, so easy access, quite easy to get to. Yep.
Yeah, it's very easy, and also, which is another great news for us, we managed to, with the help of our Samoan government, our national carrier, Samoa Airways, had managed to resume flights to Savaii at one of the airports right at the top of Savaii Island, which is called the Asau Airport.
Okay.
And that's very, very handy for those who wish to travel on, because it will take you an hour from Upolu just to land at the wharf in Savaii, and then another about 2 hours to get from that point to where the top of the island for those people living on that side of the island. So it's very handy and very quick.
So we know we can stay in some beautiful properties there. Lots of things to do, and so it gives us an indication of some of the places that the Tosuvua Ocean Trench is extraordinary looking. And can you just explain a little about that? It seems to be iconic. If you're going to Samoa, you must go to the trench.
Yeah, it's a 30-meter deep swimming hole. There's actually two holes down there.
Okay.
So the Tosua, which in English is a big, watery hole or a big giant swimming hole, and the Tolesua, which in English is a giant dry hole. So the Tosua, the giant swimming hole as we call it, is the most popular one, and people would go there at a small charge. To spend the day having a picnic there, and to swim, go down about 30 meters.
Is it salt water coming in, or is it fresh water?
It's actually salt water.
Okay.
And locals have it that you could actually swim out to the open waters, but
if you want to.
But it's definitely for the experienced swimmers. If you want to try that opening, going out to the open water. But it's usually not recommended for...
No. The blowholes, explain about the blowholes. I've seen lots of pictures of them, but I haven't actually experienced it. They look extraordinary.
Yep, so as soon as you land in Savaii, you can drive towards the southwest, up towards the northwest, and halfway between the wharf and the most western point, or the most northern point, is the Alofa'anga. We call it the Alofa'anga blowholes. Okay. And it's one of probably one of the strongest blowholes in the rest of the South Pacific. I mean, I'm talking about people throwing in things like coconut husks, even sometimes rocks about this size. And on a good day, would shoot that out, right out, up to about 40 meters into the air.
You have to be careful when they come down.
Yeah, and just before, as you're driving towards the parking and the area where you park before you go down to the blowhole, you could feel the thundery sounds.
Wow.
Especially when it's really high tide and the swells are really, really big, it really, really turns it on. It's like, it's really...
It's spectacular. It's spectacular.
It's really
and scary.
Not only spectacular, but it's fantastic.
Yeah, get you right here. So we've got waterfalls, we've got beaches, we've got... I presume, I don't think I need to mention snorkeling, diving, etc. would be fantastic. And I know that the game fishing is superb off both islands, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yep. And Robert Louis Stevenson, can you explain a bit the background there? I'm not sure many Kiwis know that he had a very strong relationship with Samoa, and he actually was buried in Samoa. He died in Samoa. One of the great authors, famous for writing Treasure Island and Kidnap, probably his most well-known ones. He loved Samoa, and he spent time there, as I understand it.
Yes. He arrived in Samoa in the late 1800s. I think it was around about 1889. He was actually traveling to the tropics to avoid staying in cold weather because he was suffering from tuberculosis.
That's right, I remember that.
But the thing is, he actually died of a cerebral hemorrhage.
Okay.
We found that he eventually switched from writing, romance novels and all those kinds of novels to into politics, a little bit into politics.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
He saw how it was during the eventual occupation and colonization, and he didn't he wasn't a fan of what was going on, so he decided to stand up with the Samoans and encourage the Samoans, and that one of the things that led us to the whole Mau movement and the independence movement.
I didn't realize that.
And because of his affiliation with the Samoans, he was very much loved. interesting thing, he was also the first person to build a 2-story house in Samoa, which is now, the Robert Louis Stevenson's museum. And
the name was Tusitala, is that the name of the?
That's what he was called in Samoa. Tusitala, which in English is storyteller or teller of tales. Because he was so loved by the Samoan community back then, when he passed away, to honor him, they decided to bury him right at the top of the nearby Mount Waia. So to give you a picture of how how special he was back then, they carried the coffin right from the bottom all the way up to the top of the.
I have friends who have done that. Friends have said it's a heck of a hike.
And if you tried the hike up to the grave, it usually takes about 35 minutes if you go the short way, which is going through a steep terrain and rainforest, and it's ideal for the for people as fit as yourself. And then there's a longer way which takes people up to
I'll take the longer way.
55 up to an hour, which is the one I sometimes take.
And his house is now the museum, is that correct?
His house is now a museum. Before they converted it into a museum, it used to be the residence of the Samoa head of state.
Right. It's a fascinating history, and particularly the German and Chinese influence there. It's very noticeable when you're in Apia, as you say, and seeing the phone book. As we know, people go to the South Pacific, they go to swim, they go to sunbathe, they go snorkeling, they may go diving. There's a range like that, which obviously Samoa offers. But in your impressions and your experience, what do people go to Samoa mainly for? What's the main attraction that people choose Samoa over another destination?
Our research has shown that people go to Samoa not just for of course, obviously the beaches, the weather, but also we have a mix of adventure, soft adventure, romance, and a lot of cultural.
There's a fascinating. The Fia night is synonymous with Samoan culture, and yes, it's done for tourists, etc., etc. But the ones I've experienced there, it's the local villagers doing it, and it's the Samoan dance, there's the fire dancing, there's singing. It's a really great cultural experience, and I love the fact that the guys out there dancing, doing the fire dancing. Next morning they'll be doing the garden, or they'll be serving you breakfast, or they'll cook and so on. It's a very, very Samoan experience. So I'm glad you mentioned culture, because I think that's important.
So and that's why we decided to to highlight that as one of our main selling points, because Samoa has a 3,000-year-old culture and has been maintained ever since. So nothing has changed of the culture. It's one of the things we find that a lot of our visitors come and see and want to immerse themselves into the culture, and by doing all the Fia nights and taking them out, explaining them all the legendary attraction sites and all the activities that have all these connections to the culture, is something that really highlights one's experience when they go to Samoa. Of course, we do have all these 4.5 star hotels and resorts, whereby we do understand that some also prefer to to be at the beach while at the same time enjoying the comfort of air conditioning and 5-star service. But also a lot do want to go out there, stay in close to the beach or on the beach, while at the same time going out and exploring the island, not just the attractions, the legends, but also mingling with the people and immersing themselves in the culture.
We'll have to wrap in a second, but that's as I understand why a lot of people go to Savaii, particularly because it's stepping back a little bit further in time than Wapula, and there are a lot of small family-owned resorts there, as well as the whales. And of course the whales have got the best air conditioning of all. You just pull the matting up and let the sea breeze come through.
That's the beauty about the beach whales, is that during the daytime the breeze will be a lot cooler. But during the nighttime, it warms you up because the breeze will be a bit warmer.
That's interesting.
And it's it's one of the things that we always encourage our visitors to try the beach valley.
It's a special destination, Sonny. The Samoan people are pretty special. Boy, they can play rugby too. I should just throw that in as well. And rugby league. So Sonny, more information about some of the website, the Samoa Tourism website.
Yes, it's www.samoa.travel. Is the website. Also, of course, we're on social media, facebook.com/Samoa Tourism Authority. YouTube is one of the up and coming channels for us, because we've been putting a lot of videos of experiences in Samoa. People going out to the attraction sites, even showing what we call the Kuka series or cooking series. So you see
we haven't even touched on cooking.
Not just from the local villages, but also at the restaurants in Samoa.
Okay. Now people can book for us their Samoan holiday through their travel agent.
Yes, most definitely.
Yeah, we're crossing fingers that the border will open soon, but none of us know, so that's up in the air. And can people contact you if they've got a specific question, Sonny?
Yes, definitely. I can be reached on, of course, my cell phone number, or just flick me an email at samoa@samoa.co.nz, which is pretty straightforward.
Just say that again.
Samoa@samoa.co.nz. That's how you.
So if anybody's got a specific question, they can contact you on that.
Yes, most definitely.
Okay.
I would very much look forward to hear from them.
Sonny, it's been great having you on the show. Thanks very much for coming in. Really
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
it. Thanks, mate.
Thanks for having me.